Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we will be discussing ACT reading, dissecting ACT question types. Together today we will come to know about the different types of questions in ACT. It's very important to know what are the types of questions that appear on the SAT reading section in order to make the most of your studying. Okay, in this video I'll be discussing with you these kind of questions and how much they show on the test. Okay, hopefully this kind of information would help you deal with this section. Let us start with type number 1, big picture questions, which mainly deal with the main idea of the passage or the narrator's overall point of view. Okay, which is very similar to the SAT type of questions. Okay, let us see an example here. The main theme of this passage concerns the, and then we are going to have like what 4 answer choices. Okay, so it depends on what your reading and your understanding of the of the whole passage. Okay, rather than focusing on very specific section of the passage or paragraph. Okay, and that question most probably will be done or will be answered at the end of what? At the end of the passage. Okay, when you finish all the questions. Let's go to type number 2, little picture detail questions, and these are the easiest questions, the most straightforward. Okay, so they ask about a small piece or factual information in a passage. We're gonna have like 18 questions out of this type, 18 questions, which is something really good and you know, like a relief for many of you. Example of the little picture detail questions. According to the passage, the research that led to the development of the small comet theory began with the project originally intended to study what? And it's easy to do it. Particularly, most of the ACT passages are chronologically ordered, which is something that we have to care about. كل الأسئلة مترتبة الترتيب المنطقي, apart from the big picture question اللي هو طبعا we need to go back to at the end of what, or when we finish answering the rest of the questions. And now type number 3, vocabulary in context questions, which is quite similar to the SAT vocabulary questions or vocabulary in context. Okay, and by the way, we shouldn't worry that much about vocabulary in ACT. Okay, no longer a worry, no longer a concern, because we're going to have only 3 questions. Okay, but they are still easy questions. As it is used in line 58, the word humor most nearly means: is it personality, whim, mood, comedy? Type number 4, development and function questions. These types of questions ask how a specific paragraph or phrase functions in the context of a passage as a whole, or how the argument in the passage is developed, or how even the author could build or structure the whole passage. These questions check your understanding of how thoughts should be organized in writing in general. Okay, what we need to know that these kinds of, or this kind of question, okay, tend to show up most often with humanities passages, as well as what? As well as paired passages. Sometimes we call them purpose questions, which is fine. The main function of the second paragraph, lines 20 to 29, is to, and sometimes without even line reference. Okay, so it is easy to go to that paragraph and you read it as a whole and you try to check your understanding and how the author could structure and how the argument is developed in that paragraph, so it's easy to deal with. Type 5 inference questions, الأسئلة الاستنتاجية. these questions ask you to infer or to make inferences based on what's stated in the passage. That's very important. So you have to take it out of the passage. It is difficult for some people, I understand this, okay? But again, they can be answered by looking at the information directly presented or stated in the passage. But still, they need you to have this kind of insight and depth of thought. لازم يبقى تفكيرك ناضج و deep شوية, you understand? But again, like the SAT, it has to do with what? With these, let us say, words. I always say it, rephrasing, rewording, and even restating. Okay? Let us see an example here. It can reasonably be inferred from the passage that the woman most strongly desires to attain which of the following qualities from dreaming, okay? So you need to read the paragraph and you figure out what can be inferred. Here is the distribution of question types. We have got the question type here, the average number of questions, and percentage of what of questions. Big picture, 4 questions. That's good news. Only 10%. Little detail, 18 questions. Some really good news. Vocabulary in context, 3 questions. So you don't have to worry that much about vocabulary. And the percentage is 8%. Development and function, the purpose question, 9, which is good by the way, and they are easy. Inference, they are 6. It is important to know this. So when you start working on the ACT, you know which type of question that you should exert more effort, okay? And as I said, that would help a lot while you are doing real ACT tests. As you know, we have 4 types of passages, okay? What are the 4 types of passages? Okay, number 1, prose, literary fiction, literature or narrative in SAT. Number 2, social science. Number 3, humanities, العلوم الإنسانية. Number 4, natural science. Okay, so these are the types of what? Of the passages that we have. What we need all to know, that the biggest challenge on the ACT reading section is not the difficulty of the questions, but it is the time. Many students run out of time simply because they haven't nailed down a good strategy. They haven't worked hard on themselves. They haven't answered a lot of tests, okay? That's one of the biggest challenges of the ACT. Now let's go to the summary of what we have talked about today. There are 5 types of questions that you will face on the ACT reading section. As we said, big picture questions, little detail, vocabulary in context, development and function, and inference. Okay? So, the most common are little detail questions, and as we said, it is 18 questions. Then we have got development and function questions, then inference questions, and finally big picture and vocabulary in context questions, which is something really good for most of you. Based on this information about the question types, what you should be doing, we need to read the passages more strategically, okay? And I'm going to tell you about my way of approaching a passage, okay, which is really easy. Then pay close attention to detail questions, okay, which is I said like 18 questions, and then reduce time spent on studying vocabulary, okay? So vocabulary in context or vocabulary in general in ACT, is not an issue by any means. Okay, thank you very much. Wish you every best of luck.